Hello BookTube, welcome to Lizzie Faye Loves Books. I'm Elizabeth and it's Vlogmas Day 9, so it's time for Friday Reads. I thought I would begin by showing you what I have been reading, what I finished this week, and then I'm going to do a little discussion on comparing cozy mysteries because I've been reading 3 different cozy mystery series this week and I thought that might make for an interesting discussion. But first let me show you what I finished this morning. I finished The Mammoth Hunters by Jean M. Auel. I listened to this on audio playaway from the library, and I have to say that even though this is really a good solid read, there were parts of it that for me were very eye-rolly and angsty. So the parts I really have been enjoying about this series are the setting and the author's idea of what the Ice Age people might have done to survive and how they may have lived, and then the storyline as it progresses through the Neanderthal people and now into the more civilized people that can actually speak, and it's just been a really interesting story. However, throughout that, starting with the last third of the book right before this one, which is Valley of Horses, a romance started blossoming, which was described by other Goodreads reviewers as caveman porn. And I would have to agree that the sexual details in this book and Valley of Horses are just way over the top. That much detail is really not necessary to this type of story, I don't think. Then in this story, because our 2 main characters discovered another group of people and they spent the majority of this book with them, then now in this book we have a love triangle, and the miscommunications and the angst of all the whole relationship in this book is just, to me, juvenile. And I mean, I know that these people didn't have access to the latest research on relationships. They didn't have counselors. Well, actually they did have their head people that they could counsel with if they wanted to, but you know, they of course didn't have access to the latest self-help book on relationships and things like that. But just the communication and the miscommunications between them, after a while I just started rolling my eyes saying, oh no, not again, really. It's just too much. And then of course there's the sex scenes, which again, as I said, are over the top. But I am at this point invested in the characters. I want to see where they go next and what happens to them. I'm definitely going to finish the series, but just know that there are these aspects of the story that you kind of have to sift through in order to find the interesting parts. So this may not be for everyone, but I'm glad that I'm reading it, and I definitely am going to continue. I did not make 1 page worth of progress on Inkspell, but I really need to get this finished this coming week because I have the CDs checked out from the library, and I've got 1 more week on these before they have to go back. I have renewed them as many times as I can, and I need to get on this. And the other books I need to read or finish reading, finish up my big year-long challenges, The Phantom Toll Booth by Norton Juster. I'm reading the 2nd and possibly the 3rd book of the Geronimo Stilton series. Faith by Lori Copeland. It's the 1st in the Brides of the West collection. And God Guns, Grits and Gravy by Mike Huckabee. And also this week I've been reading 3 different cozy mysteries from 3 different book series. And I finished one this morning. It's The Great Turkey Caper by Madison Johns. I read this in ebook form on my Kindle, and I have to say I did not enjoy this one. Then I'm about 100 pages in to both of these others. A Deadly Grind by Victoria Hamilton. This is the 1st in the Vintage Kitchen mystery series, and I am enjoying this one. And then So Deadly by Elizabeth Lynn Casey is the 1st book in the Southern Sewing Circle mystery series, and I'm loving this one. So in looking at these 3 books and kind of comparing them, I started wondering, what is it about them that made me feel differently? And I was looking at the different aspects of cozy mysteries, and since some of you maybe are new to cozy mysteries or maybe interested in reading one and don't know where to start, so I thought this would make for an interesting discussion about where you might start in cozy mysteries. And where you would start is different than where I would start, because cozy mysteries generally have some sort of an underlying theme. A lot of them have the theme of some sort of hobby or something you can make, like some sort of needlecraft or handwork, or some sort of type of food that you can make, and that will include recipes. Some of them may have a different career theme, and then some of them may just be different because of the age group of the sleuth. For instance, like is in the case of Nancy Drew. Nancy Drew is a YA mystery, or a middle grade mystery, because it is a teenager who is solving the crimes. Now, the Great Turkey Caper didn't really have an underlying craft or career theme, but the sleuths in this series are senior citizens. So that's kind of really the only underlying theme that I could discover about this series. Now, I will say that even though The Great Turkey Caper is the first in a series of holiday novellas, it is a spin-off series of another series that has the same characters. And I didn't have to read very far into this one to understand that I probably should have started with the main series, because this novella series does not really give any backstory about the characters. And so going into it, you're not invested in the characters, but yet it seems that you are expected to understand their motivations and where they're coming from, because the dialogue, I think, is kind of based on who they are as people, and to an outsider it seems kind of random and bizarre. So I didn't identify with this one, probably because there was not an underlying theme that I could identify with. And then because I'm not yet a senior citizen, I'm close, but I'm not there yet, I didn't really identify with what they were going through in their life. I mean, they're playing golf and going to the country club, and they have grandchildren, and the children are grown, they have grandchildren, and that type of thing. So I didn't really identify with that. Now, that's not to say that I wouldn't enjoy or don't enjoy other series that are about senior citizens. I have read a couple of the Miss Marple mysteries by Agatha Christie, and I thought they were wonderful. And I have a series by Effie Leland Wilder that is a set of books that she wrote at the age of 85 and older that are about her experiences in a senior citizens assisted living community, and they're wonderful. But for some reason, I just didn't identify with this one. Now, this one I think I have enjoyed very well, even though I don't identify with the main character so much. She's much younger than me. However, the theme of this book is vintage kitchen, and she's a collector of vintage kitchen items, and I have acquired several vintage kitchen items from my childhood home from my mother, because she was a home economics teacher, and she collected and she kept and collected a few things from my father's grandmother, and things from her mother when she passed away. And so I have some of those things and I really enjoy them. In fact, at one point in the story, she mentions making a dessert and using her primary colored Pyrex bowls. Well, I have these bowls. These came from my mother's kitchen. Now, I have had to replace a couple of them due to breakages, but I can completely identify with this item because I have them. And I have other vintage kitchen items. I have this glass churn that actually works. And I'll show you a couple of other things in my kitchen that I enjoy having on my wall. This is up above my stove. This is a strainer. And then the item on top is actually the wooden, it looks like a rolling pin, but that's what you actually use with the strainer to push your tomatoes or whatever you're straining through the strainer. And then below that is my great-grandmother's rolling pin. And then this platter doesn't look like much, but it belonged to my great-grandmother. It had a lot of good memories from my father, because he said he could never go to his grandmother's house without her trying to feed him something. And it was usually on this platter, which would be tucked in her warming oven with biscuits or sausages or, things of that nature that she would offer him to eat after school or when he would come to her house. So I really identify with the theme. And even though the main kitchen item in the story is a Hoosier cabinet, which I had never heard of, I, of course, had to look it up, and now I know something about what a Hoosier cabinet is, and that's wonderful, because now I've learned something about something I'm interested in. So even though the character herself is much younger than me and not completely relatable to me, the theme of the book is wonderful. So that makes this book very enjoyable to me. Now, this book I love because not only does it have a couple of underlying themes that I enjoy, it has the underlying theme of sewing, and then also the main character is a librarian. Now, I'm not a librarian, but I have volunteered a lot in school libraries. I've done library book sales at the public library. I've spent a lot of time in libraries, so that is relatable to that to an extent. But where this character is in her life right now, I went through that. It's been almost 30 years ago, but she has just moved into a small southern town from another state, and she is having difficulty fitting into the customs and just, you know, she's experiencing being an outsider and trying to make friends, and the job she's in is a public service job, and there are people in that community that are making things very difficult for her. I went through all of that. When I first moved to Florida, I was a county extension agent in a small county, not this one, not where I am now, and I was only there less than a year because it was a nightmare for me. Now, I'm hoping that our main character here can stick it out. I hope she can overcome some of the things that I couldn't, but this character is just completely relatable. And on top of that, my sister recommended this to me. So you have the fact that it's a theme that I know something about, that I can relate to, a character I can relate to, and it was recommended. So for me, this was a really good book to pick up and read. So if you are interested in reading cozy mysteries, or maybe you've read a couple and you don't really know where to go next, think about what types of themes you enjoy, because there are all kinds of careers and hobbies that have a series that relates to that. And then if you find that you can relate to the character, then that's a bonus. And if all of those factors are true, then it may not be a perfect book, but you can overlook some of the imperfections just because you can relate to the story. And I think for me that's true of the Fresh Baked Mystery Series by Olivia J. Washburn. Because this is a series about retired teachers, and I have lived with and been around teachers my entire life, I can relate to this book because of that. Even though it might be a little slow, some of the dialogue is not all that exciting, I can overlook the imperfections because I love the premise so much. So find yourself a premise and a series type that you enjoy and give it a try. You might like to join our first in series Cozy Mystery Book Club that is hosted by Di. We use our Mystery Madness Goodreads group for the discussions for those books, and we only pick books that are first in their series, and we pick at least 2 books per month, so you can read both books or just pick one, or skip a month and come back the next month and see what we're reading. So we'd love to have you join us. But that's all I have for this video. I hope you're having a great day. Read a good book, and God bless you.